It started with an empty space. I had just come back from the shelter, the late shift, the kind where your hands remember every wound they touched, and your back hums with quiet protest. I hung my jacket on the old peg by the door, still damp at the hem. Set my canvas bag down like always, careful not to spill the dog biscuits rattling inside. Then I looked out the window. Something was off. My eyes scanned the driveway automatically, expecting the familiar curve of green metal, the faded bumper sticker with Dean's initials still half scraped off. Gone. The Impala. Ours. We bought it when Kyle was 10. It was the car that took us to funerals, and pumpkin patches, and early morning vet visits. Dean always said it had a soul, something solid and stubborn, just like him. It had never failed me. Not once. And now it was simply missing. I didn't panic. I didn't call anyone. I just stood there with my hand still on the doorknob, as if moving any further might make the emptiness worse. No note. No message. Just the quiet kind of theft, the kind that doesn't smash windows or leave footprints. Just absence. And somehow, I knew. This wasn't random. This was chosen. And I had a sinking feeling I already knew who had chosen it. I stood in the kitchen until my knees began to ache. The sun had dipped just low enough to leave the tops of the trees in gold, but the yard below was already shadowed. The Impala always caught that light this time of day, its hood glowing like old glass. Not now. Now the driveway looked naked. I walked slowly to the back of the house, opened the drawer where we kept the keys. Or used to. It was empty. Not just the car keys gone, others too. The shed. The filing cabinet. The small lockbox Dean had used for title deeds and the last of the war bonds his father left him. Something cold spread in my stomach. Not fear. Not yet. Just the certainty of something being taken. I made tea out of habit. Stood with my hands wrapped around the mug, though I didn't drink. The house creaked in the same old places, above the hallway, where the insulation sagged, near the laundry room, where the pipes had always been restless. Familiar sounds. But they didn't comfort me now. They felt too loud. Too exposed. When Kyle had come by last week, he'd brought lunch. Deli sandwiches, the expensive kind. He'd opened drawers without asking, stacked envelopes in neat piles like he was doing me a favor. Said it was time to simplify. Dad always meant to streamline this, he'd said, motioning toward the desk. I can help. I didn't protest. Grief dulls your edges. Makes you agreeable when you shouldn't be. Now I felt every place his hands had been. I walked to the study. The filing cabinet stood partly open, one drawer slightly ajar. I pulled it fully and saw the space where our title papers had been. Dean had kept them in a manila folder marked with blue ink, his habit since the 80s. Now, that folder was gone. I opened the second drawer. Banking. Legal letters. Insurance policies. Empty. The third drawer was untouched, old journals, some of my vet tech records, a few photo envelopes rubber banded together. But the important papers. Taken. And it hadn't been a burglar. No one had forced the back door. No drawers were rifled through, nothing overturned. This wasn't theft. This was pruning. Cleaning out what someone thought I no longer needed. I sat down in Dean's old chair. It was worn in the seat, the leather cracked where his belt used to rub the armrest. The room still smelled faintly of tobacco, even though he'd quit in '97. From the back of the bottom drawer, I pulled out a folded napkin, the kind they give out at retirement luncheons. It had Dean's scrawl on it, a note he'd written while talking with Nadine, our lawyer, a few years before his stroke. If Kyle ever oversteps, ask Nadine about the letter. Tell her I said, use the safe. I hadn't thought of it in years. My hands trembled, not from fear, but something else. Something sharper. I stood slowly, setting my untouched tea down on the side table. Then I walked to the front closet, where Dean had kept a small fireproof box behind his old boots. The box was gone. And I knew, with a stillness that settled deep into my bones, that my son had made a decision. One I had never asked for. One he believed I wouldn't question. A decision about what I did and did not need. The next morning, I called Nadine. Her voice was warm but alert, like she'd been expecting my call. "I've been meaning to reach out," she said carefully. "Dean left something with me, some time ago. Said it was only to be opened if you asked for it. I assume something's happened." I didn't give details. Just told her I needed to come by. She cleared her schedule. By noon, I was in her office. The same little building where Dean and I had signed our first mortgage, sitting on stiff leather chairs under that god-awful watercolor of a barn owl. The painting was still there. So was the scent of paper and citrus cleaner. Nadine handed me a sealed envelope. My name was written on it in Dean's slanted, methodical print. Inside was a single key. And a short letter, folded once. L. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and Kyle has started making decisions he has no right to make. Don't argue. Don't fight. Just act. Carolina safe. Box 48. Everything is in your name. Trust what we built. D. I read it twice. Then a third time. The key was small, brass. No markings. But I knew where it belonged. Dean's lawyer friend in Carolina, a man named Morel, had once helped him set up a safe deposit box, back when Dean had gotten spooked by a scam call and spent a month researching asset insulation. I never questioned it then. I trusted him. Now I understood. Dean had seen this coming. Not in full, but enough. Enough to leave me a path back to myself. I closed the letter slowly, slid the key into my coat pocket, and looked up at Nadine. I need you to help me retrieve what's mine. Her eyes didn't flicker. Of course, she said. The drive to Carolina felt like memory. Every turn of the road echoed some earlier version of me as a younger wife, a tired mother, a woman who once believed quiet endurance was the same thing as peace. It rained the second day, a fine mist that clung to the windshield and blurred the outlines of the hills. I drove in silence. No radio. Just the rhythm of the wipers and the faint hum of the tires against wet asphalt. I stayed overnight in a roadside inn, the kind with floral bedspreads and thin coffee. I didn't sleep much. My dreams were patchwork: Dean's voice, the smell of oil and tobacco, Kyle's face from years ago, soft and trusting, before his eyes learned calculation. By morning, the clouds had lifted. I pulled into Morel's office parking lot just after 10. It was smaller than I remembered, an old bank building with green trim and a carved sign that read, "Carolina Safe and Trust." The receptionist greeted me with polite detachment until I handed her the key. "Box 48, I said. Something shifted in her expression. She picked up the phone, murmured into it, then gestured toward a hallway. "Mr. Morel will meet you in the vault room." The vault room hadn't changed. Cold tile, overhead fluorescents, and that faint metallic scent, like nickels and dust. Morel was already waiting, older now, his once dark hair nearly white. But his eyes were the same, clear, measuring. "Mrs. Banner," he said, holding out his hand. "It's been a long time." "Not long enough," I murmured, half to myself. He didn't press for explanation. Just led me to a metal door and unlocked it with a long-handled key from his breast pocket. Then he motioned toward the rows of safety boxes. "Box 48 is yours alone. Dean made that very clear." I stepped forward and slid my key into the matching lock. It clicked open with the quiet finality of a chapter turning. Inside the box were three things: a flash drive, a thin manila folder, and a handwritten inventory list. The folder contained title deeds, properties I didn't know we owned, each stamped with my name as sole beneficiary. The flash drive held a document labeled simply, L. Banner Holdings. I recognized Dean's formatting style. Rows and columns, color-coded tabs. And the inventory list. 10 properties. 5 in Tennessee, 3 in South Carolina, 2 in Henderson. All under an LLC I had never heard of, Banner Grove. But it was the note paper clipped to the inventory that stopped me. L. If you're reading this, it means Kyle has made his move. You don't need to fight him. You just need to own what we built. Banner Grove is yours. Always has been. The Impala wasn't just a car. It was an asset. The first one in your name. It was the test. If Kyle tried to take it, he'd try to take more. Now it's time to decide what's yours to keep, and what you're ready to let go of. Start with property number 6. It's the cabin. Dean. I stared at the page. The cabin. The one Kyle had rented with his friends for years. He'd always bragged about the deal he'd found, how it was owned by some shell company, and how lucky he was to lock it in before market rates exploded. That cabin was mine. And he had no idea. I turned to Morel, who had waited quietly by the door. I need to authorize a rental adjustment, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. He nodded once. Understood. We handled it that afternoon. Quietly. Legally. No confrontation. The lease was revised. Market rates applied. Payment due within 30 days. I didn't call Kyle. Didn't send a letter. I simply let the system he had tried to exploit do its job. By the time I returned home, the new lease agreement had been emailed from the property management firm to Kyle's inbox. I found him on my voicemail 2 days later. The tone had changed. Mom, he began, voice clipped, we need to talk. I don't understand what this is about. The cabin lease. That's confusing. Can you call me back? I didn't. He called again the next day. Then again. When he finally showed up at my door, he had the Impala keys in hand. And that old, practiced smile. Thought you'd want these back, he said lightly, as if nothing had happened. I took them without a word. Then he pulled a folder from his coat pocket, financial spreadsheets, printouts, plans. I've been thinking, he said. Maybe I moved too fast. I just wanted to help. Help. The word fell flat between us. I looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for the boy I once knew. I saw only strategy. I turned, walked to the drawer where Dean used to keep stamps, and returned with a sealed envelope. For you, I said. He opened it slowly, scanning the documents inside. Title deeds. Property records. The revised lease. And one short note in my handwriting. From now on, you ask. His expression tightened. He looked up, eyes searching mine. I don't understand, he said. What is this? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He had never asked before. Not about the car. Not about the papers. Not even about what Dean might have wanted. Now he would learn. Respect isn't owed. It's earned. And I had just taken mine back. The house was quieter now. Not silent, exactly, just settled. Like it had been holding its breath, and now exhaled. After Kyle left, I sat in the study and watched the shadows lengthen across the floor. Dean's chair was still slightly turned from where I'd sat earlier. I didn't move it back. I liked seeing it that way, ask you, like he'd just stepped out for a minute, maybe to fetch another cup of tea or wipe his hands after checking the car's oil. I placed the Impala keys back on the hook beside the door. Let them hang in their rightful place. I could see the driveway from the window now. Empty still, but not for long. Nadine had called. The transfer had been reversed. The car was coming home. It wasn't about the vehicle. It never was. It was about the line. The one Kyle had stepped over. Quietly. Carefully. As if assuming I wouldn't notice. The following week, I made changes. No announcement. Just precision. New locks. New will. Access revoked. Accounts revised. Nadine handled most of it, smoothly, without judgment. She was good like that. A woman who'd spent her career helping people, mostly women like me, undo what trust had made fragile. Kyle's tone on the phone shifted quickly. From confusion to concern. Then concern to offense. "You should have told me," he said one morning, his voice tight. I was in the garden, kneeling in the dirt. The irises needed dividing. "Told you what?" "That you were, what, rewriting everything. Cutting me out." "I didn't cut you out, Kyle." He let out a short, bitter laugh. "It feels that way. You sold my car without asking. You emptied drawers without permission. You decided I didn't need choices." I lifted a root ball from the ground, shook the soil loose. My gloves were worn through at the tips. "You made decisions for me. That's not the same as helping." He was silent. "Then, you never used to talk to me like this." "I never needed to." It hung there between us. The truth is, I had spent years cushioning him. Protecting his confidence. Bending so he wouldn't have to adjust. That's what mothers do, we're told. We soften our edges so our children don't bruise against them. But age teaches you something else. Softness, unchecked, becomes erasure. That night, I sat with Dean's letter again. The one he left with the key. I traced his handwriting with my finger. He had always printed in block letters, careful and slow, as if he were carving them in stone. He had seen what I refused to. That our son had learned how to take without asking. And that one day, I might need reminding of my own voice. The next morning, I went to the bank. Not to change anything. Just to look. Helen, the manager, greeted me with her usual warmth. She offered coffee, but I declined. "I'd like to see the holdings again," I said. "Everything Dean placed in my name. I need to understand it fully this time." She didn't blink. Just pulled the file. We reviewed every property. Every trust. Every fallback clause. And then she said something that stopped me. "There's one account left. A dormant one. Unused for over a decade. Tied to Banner Grove. Technically yours, but not active. Dean listed it as discretionary. Meant for family emergencies." Family emergencies. I asked to see the statement. There was a deposit, recent. Just after the lease adjustment for the cabin had processed. A payment from Kyle. Full market rate. No complaint. The funds had routed to the dormant account automatically. Helen smiled. "It's growing again." I didn't respond. Later, at home, I sat on the porch swing with the folder in my lap. The wind smelled like cut grass and something softer, maybe lilac. Spring was coming early this year. Kyle hadn't pushed back. Not on the lease. Not on the deeds. Not even when the locks changed. He hadn't apologized either. But he had paid. Willingly. On time. Sometimes power shifts quietly. Not with apology. Not with admission. Just with a change in behavior. And sometimes, that's enough. I watched the sun dip low behind the trees. The kind of golden haze that turns everything it touches into memory. The porch swing creaked beneath me. Dean's old flannel was still draped over the armrest. I pulled it close, pressed my face into the worn fabric. And for the first time since he died, I didn't feel alone. I felt aligned. With the woman I used to be. With the woman I was becoming again. Not softer. Not harder. Just whole. The next day, I placed the old license plate from the Impala on the wall of the garage, above Dean's workbench. Not as a relic. As a reminder. Of what was mine. Of what remains. Spring came in soft, uneven pulses. The kind of season that didn't announce itself all at once, but crept in, one new bud at a time, one softened morning at a time. I found myself waking earlier. Not from worry. From stillness. Some mornings, I walked the garden with tea in hand. Others, I sat by the window in Dean's chair, watching the way light moved across the table. There was a peace in that, quiet, earned, and full of something that didn't need words. I had reclaimed the Impala from the holding yard 3 weeks ago. The man who brought it back said it still ran like a dream. I didn't doubt it. Dean used to joke it would outlive both of us. I drove it into town one morning, just to see if it still knew the roads. It did. At the grocery store, I parked near the back, like Dean always had. Not out of habit, but intention. You give the closed spots to people who need them, he used to say. We've got legs. Use 'em. I walked the aisles slowly, letting myself enjoy the slowness. A clerk asked if I needed help. I told her no, thank you, I was just remembering. And I was. Not mourning. Not missing. Remembering. Kyle called again the next day. The 4th time since the lease adjustment. Each message a little softer. A little longer. As if he was circling around something but hadn't found the angle yet. He hadn't mentioned the trust. Or the properties. Or the will. He just said he was thinking of coming by next week. Wanted to know if I needed anything from the city. I didn't return the call right away. Not because I was angry. But because I wanted to think about what I would say. It was a few days later, mid-morning, over toast and marmalade, when I finally dialed back. His voice picked up on the second ring. Mom? I didn't comment on the surprise in his tone. I got your message, I said. Oh. Good. I was just wondering, if maybe you needed groceries or, I don't know, someone to fix the. I'm managing fine. Silence. Then a soft breath. I know you are. I waited. He began, and faltered. I could hear traffic in the background, the faint beep of a crosswalk, the engine idle of his car. Then, his voice again. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't speak. For the car, he added quickly. And the papers. I wasn't thinking. Or. I was thinking too much. I thought I was helping. You weren't, I said. Calm. Not cruel. I know that now. I let that hang between us. Then, Dean saw it coming. He didn't ask who Dean meant. He just exhaled, slow, and waited. I guess that doesn't surprise me. He left everything for me, I continued. In my name. Quietly. Deliberately. I figured, Kyle said, barely audible. I don't owe you an explanation. I'm not asking for one. We sat in that space, mother and son, uncomfortably aware of the new terrain between us. Then he said something unexpected. I've been renting a new place. Oh? Closer to work. Smaller. Just me. Tanya. He hesitated. We're figuring things out. I didn't press. I found a box last week, he added. Old photos. From when I was little. There's one of you and Dad, holding me in front of the first house. You're both covered in paint. I remembered the day. The hallway was robin's egg blue. Dean had accidentally stepped in the tray. You looked happy, he said. I was. I didn't always see that growing up. You weren't supposed to. You were the reason. He was quiet again. Then. I've been thinking about the cabin. About the fact that it was yours. All that time. You treated it like it wasn't. I know. There was a long pause. Then he asked, carefully. Do you think it's too late? For what? For us. For me. To try again. I didn't answer right away. I looked out the window. The wind was moving through the trees in long, slow gusts. Not fierce. Just steady. Like breath. No, I said finally. But it won't look the same. I don't expect it to. You'll need to earn trust back. I want to. I stood, walked to the sink, rinsed my plate. Then we'll see, I said. That was all. We ended the call with no promises. Just possibility. That night, I went to the garage. Ran my fingers along the Impala's hood. I opened the glove box. The flash drive was still there. Untouched. Secure. I slid it into a small tin box and placed it behind the bookshelf, beside Dean's tool ledger. Just for safekeeping. Then I lit a fire in the hearth and sat with the quiet. Dean used to say dignity was like good timber, slow-grown, unshowy, but strong enough to build a house around. I believe that now. Kyle might come back. He might not. Either way, I had reclaimed what mattered, not just the property, not just the accounts, but my place. My steadiness. My name. Respect doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand. And I was standing now. Firm. Seen. Home. The cabin smelled like pine and old ash. I hadn't been back in years, not since Dean's last birthday, when we'd grilled on the deck and laughed like the world still had time. Kyle was supposed to come that weekend, but something came up. Tanya's conference, or one of the kids' piano things. Now it was just me. I turned the key in the old brass lock. The door stuck a little, as it always had. Inside, the air was still, sun filtering in through the blinds in soft golden bands. Dust motes hung like memories. I set my bag down and walked the perimeter, checked the stove, opened windows, let the wind in. Then I sat on the porch and watched the trees move like waves, their leaves whispering things I hadn't let myself feel in months. I stayed 2 nights. Cooked simply. Wrote in my journal. Watched deer pass through the clearing at dusk. On the 3rd morning, I brought out the last letter. Dean's final note. The one I hadn't been ready to open until now. It was folded in his usual way, 2 creases, no wasted space. L. If you're here, it means you've taken it back. The life, not just the land. Good. I didn't build this for Kyle. I built it for you. Because I knew you'd forget who you were in the storm of grief. Because I knew someone might try to decide for you. And because I remembered the woman you were before any of this, the one who drove halfway to Memphis with a flat tire and still made it to her shift on time. That woman could do anything. Don't give her up. Not for grief. Not for guilt. Not for anyone. This land is yours. This piece is yours. Live it. D. I pressed the paper to my chest and let the tears fall. Not from sadness, something else. Release. That afternoon, I lit a fire in the old stone pit behind the cabin. Poured 2 cups of tea. One for me. One for the space beside me. Then I sat and watched the flames flicker, warm and real, their light reflecting off the tin box that now held the flash drive, the deed, the letter. That evening, my phone buzzed. A message from Kyle. I told the kids about the cabin. About you. Emma asked if she could visit sometime. Just her and me. If that's okay. I stared at the screen a long time. Then I typed, yes. If she comes, she'll help me plant the new garden. And I'll tell her stories you forgot to remember. I pressed send. Then I set the phone down, leaned back, and let the quiet hold me. This was not a beginning. This was a return. To self. To stillness. To strength. And this time, no one would take it from me.